Hi everyone, my name is Jim and welcome back to another episode of Make Do Mondays. I am back here in the kitchen and today is going to be about how to save your tomato seeds. We all love growing tomatoes, okay? I mean, the fruit is just gorgeous. It stores really well. You can use tomatoes in everything. You can eat them fresh. They're really good for you. I mean, there is nothing... I mean, I even like the foliage. I love the way it smells, even though it makes my fingers all black, but never mind. Tomatoes is one of those things that you can yield a lot of fruit from, but you can also yield a lot of seed from. So essentially, we're not only growing food, but we're also growing our stock of seeds at the same time. Now, I just want to say, as a precursor, that the seeds that I'm going to be saving are heirloom variety seeds, okay? And that's really important. If you are looking to keep your seed and plant it again, the heirloom varieties, if you want to have the exact same plant next year, the heirloom varieties are really the only variety that you can do this with. If you decide to save seed from an F1 hybrid, you are essentially taking a gamble as to what will come up the next year, because hybridized plants, obviously, they're taking two or more different varieties and, you know, hybridizing them, okay? They're creating something new. And when you harvest the seed from that and plant it the next year, you're not sure what's going to come up, okay? Most likely it will not be exactly like the plant that you had, put in the ground. It will likely revert back to whatever, one variety was hybridized with it. So if you're going to be doing this, I suggest doing it with heirloom seeds, which is what I'm going to do. So you're going to need a couple of things for this. Like I said, this is super easy. Do you need everything that I'm telling you, in this video? No, but this is just, this is the way I do it. And it gives me an opportunity to be as organized as possible. So, as you know, I don't throw anything away, to my detriment sometimes. And so the first thing that you're going to need are some kind of a vessel. Now, whenever I purchase any type of food, dry food stocked, on the shelves type of thing that's preserved, I always tend to go with glass, okay? Because I can reuse the jars. So, I mean, this is really the tip of the iceberg with what I have, but save your jars, and then you can use the jars for this activity. So I'm going to be saving seed for 6 different varieties, the 6 that I grew, okay, that are all heirloom seeds. All right, and so what I did was, these jars are all clean, and I've had them in storage. You take your jars, and you grab some type of, tape of some kind. I use painter's tape just because it's easy, to pull off. It doesn't leave a sticky residue. So I have painter's tape, and I've got a marker, a Sharpie here, and label your jars, the variety that you are going to be putting in here for the seed, okay? So I've got beefsteak, Glamour, New Yorker, this is the Roma Plum, Sweetie, and Heinz, okay? What I then did, once all of these jars were taken care of and labeled, I have a huge package of these little paper lunch bags, okay? what I did immediately after labeling the jars is I labeled each of the bags with the, the appropriate variety. Okay, so for example, I'm going to be putting Heinz Tomatoes in here, tomato seed in here. Now, what I love about this, excuse me, what I love about doing this is that now I can use this bag to save my seed, but even beforehand, I can use these to go and harvest tomatoes, okay? You want to be able to keep the varieties, I'm sorry for that sound, you want to keep the varieties separate and you want to make sure that they are the correct varieties, okay? That's really important. You don't want to just go out to your garden and grab a handful because they may not all look the same and then you're kind of up a creek when it comes to which varieties that you have. So I use these little bags to collect my tomatoes. I put my tomatoes in here and then I can bring them back in the house and they're all separate and ready to go, okay? So I'm gonna go back to the garden, I'm gonna harvest what I need, and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back from the garden. I've filled my bags. Now, this is personal preference. You do not have to do this, but I mean, typically as growers, we wanna make sure that we have the absolute best seed from the best plants, from the best fruit, okay? That's usually the seed that you want to keep because then hopefully, in years as they pass, you will continue having, beautiful, large, gorgeous fruit. So I went back and I chose what I thought was the best and the biggest beautiful fruit off of each variety. So once again, I've got the Heinz tomato, okay? Look at that gorgeousness, okay? So I'm gonna set this aside now. Now that I have gone and harvested and used these to carry my precious cargo back, I'm gonna set this aside because then once the seed is done and processed the way that we want it to, I'm going to use this bag to store the seed, okay? Isn't that nice? Okay, I'm gonna just set that aside there. Okay, so I have my Heinz tomato here. I'm going to find my Heinz jar. All right, super simple. I'm gonna cut my tomato in quarters. Okay, and I want to be able to, grab a spoon. I want to be able to expose the seed. Now, these aren't terribly seedy tomatoes, this variety. They were bred for canning, but they are still heirloom variety and I can still get a lot off of this. So I'm going to kind of cut down and around the meaty part. I want to get into the seeds. Yeah, there is a lot of meat on these. Gorgeousness. Sorry, I have to. Okay, so now I'm getting into the pulpiness where all the seeds are being hidden. Okay? And this variety is very easy to deal with because you can just kind of peel the flesh out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of squeezing the pulp. All right? And with the pulp comes the seeds. All right? And I'm letting those seeds and the pulp go right into the jar. Okay? And it's great. I mean, what better way for cleanup? I'm cleaning as I go, right? Shoving my face full of tomato. I had one seed kind of fall onto the cutting board here. That's precious cargo, my friends. We must not waste a single seed. Okay. Super. Here's some more of this gooey flesh with seeds in it. Now, this process is kind of, I think a lot of people refer to as fermenting. And I can explain as to why that's going to happen as soon as I'm done shoving my face full of tomatoes. It's a messy job, but any job with tomatoes, if you're processing it, is a messy job. It's messy but gorgeous. Get all those seeds out with the pulp. Okay, so I guess you guys get the idea, right? I'm going to continue on with this tomato, and I'm going to show you what I have left once I finish de-seeding the whole thing. Okay, so I've gotten all of this particular variety. Again, this is called Heinz. I've gotten it almost completely seeded. Okay, just a few more hanging on there. But this variety is really ideal for canning. I mean, I got all the seeds out, and look at how much tomato is left over. Okay. Not only does it taste great fresh, but look at the meat on those. So it's really, really great if you're into the preservation of food preserving and things like that, canning and bottling. Now I notice there's a couple of seeds here still on the cutting board. I'm just gonna scoop them up with my spoon and drop them in. Okay, there's one more. So next step is we're just going to, well, let me show you what this looks like. Okay. So there's a lot of juice in there, and there's plenty of seeds floating around. I'm going to take my kettle, which I have filled with cold water, and I'm going to fill up the jar. Okay. So it's kind of a cloudy mess right now. That's fine. If you're noticing that most of, now that it has had time to kind of sit there, most of the seed and the pulp has descended to the bottom. Okay. I'm going to put my top on, and this may be a step that people take. It may not be. This is a step that I take. But I'm going to give it a shake. I want to help loosen some of that seed from the pulp a little bit. Okay. And that's it for now. That's all we have for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cap off of this, and I'm going to put this out over by my sink. Okay, that's a north-facing window. It doesn't get a lot of sunlight. I'm just going to put this over there with the top off, and I'm going to let it ferment. Okay, so what's going to happen is, over time, what's going to happen is that the seeds will separate from the goo, from the pulp, okay? The pulp is going to rise to the top as it ferments, all right? Leaving all the seeds to float to the bottom. Pretty cool, all right? If you think about how, if you leave a tomato out in the garden, okay, it goes through a fermenting process, okay? Tomato falls off the plant, it starts to rot and everything like that, okay? It starts this fermenting process, and then the next year, the seeds will likely grow, okay? We're kind of doing that on our own. This is our fermenting process, all right? So, pulp will rise to the top, or the fermented stuff will rise to the top. The seeds will float, or will sink to the bottom. Now, you might encounter some seeds that are floating to the top, okay? That's typical. The seeds that float to the top are going to be the seeds that are unviable. The viable seeds, the ones that you want to save, are going to sink to the bottom. Okay, so we're going to come back to this, come back to these. I've got to get through all of these varieties, get my jars filled up. Once I'm done with all of these, we're going to leave these on the counter over here, over by the sink. We're going to let them do their thing. I'll probably leave them for a couple of days. All right. And I'm going to show you what they look like. So it's going to be a completely different day and a costume change on top of it. All right. So I'll see you in a few seconds, although it's going to be a few days. Ta-da! Costume change. Okay, so it's been several days since I started the fermenting process off of these seeds. So the next step, once everything has separated and the good seeds have descended to the bottom, the bad seeds and the gook has gone to the top, is I have gone through and I have cleaned out every single one of the jars, just the gook at the top, and left the seeds that are at the bottom. But I'm holding this roll of paper towels because before you do any of the rinsing process, which is next, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take a piece of paper towel, okay? All right, I've got these smaller ones, all right? And then, just a little bit off camera here, I'm just gonna pull this off here, okay? The first variety that I'm going to be moving from jar, out of jar, I should say, is New Yorker, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little tag that I had on my jar and I'm going to affix it to my paper towel, okay? What's gonna happen is after I'm done rinsing off the seeds to get any kind of residue that's left on there, I'm gonna take the seeds and I'm just going to put it on this paper towel for it to dry. So, without further ado, let me show you how I do that. Okay, so I have a little strainer here. It's just a tea strainer, very, very fine mesh strainer. And now we're just gonna give it a quick rinse. If there's any particles that might be still kind of hanging out there, any glop that has still kind of holding on to the seed, I have to tell you that the water, okay, the water is pretty stinky. Okay, so that's how I know. And then I'm just going to take this, put it on my paper towel, and then I'm just gonna spread the seed out. Okay? And that's what it looks like. Now the seeds are gonna have to dry, all right? So as you can see, my label is still here. I'm gonna set all of these aside to dry. Okay, and once they are fully dried, then I will be taking them and putting them into these paper bags. Okay, dropping the seeds in here, fold them over, give them a staple, and then I will have next year's seed stock ready to go. You can see I have quite a number of seeds here, okay? I think I may have more than I would get in a standard seed package, so I'm really, really happy about that. So I'm gonna get on with the, sorry, the camera just moved. I'm gonna get on with the rest of these, and then we'll just have a little chat. So I thought it would be only appropriate that I would end the video where I started, and that was with my Heinz tomatoes, and here are the seeds for those. Okay, they're still wet, they're still sticking on the paper towel, but I'm gonna leave these to dry thoroughly, okay? 2 pieces of advice, absolutely, like I had mentioned, make sure you label, if you're doing several varieties, label your paper towels, Okay, I'm just reusing the same piece of tape, or you could write down, you know, with a Sharpie, that's fine. That's the first thing. A second thing, okay, while they're drying, if you are living with somebody who maybe perhaps doesn't understand what you're doing, make sure you let them know, because this could easily look like a piece of garbage. And I had a very good laugh when I was talking about saving seed with my dad, because he had done the same thing. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. And my mother thought it was garbage and threw away all the seeds. So make sure you let whomever's living with you, let them know that, you know, this is next year's food. Please don't throw it away. So these will get nice and dry, and then we will put them in the bag. I will seal them up, store them in a cool and dry place, and then hopefully next year, all of these seeds that you have tirelessly worked for from seed to seed will come back, and you will have better, more abundant crops. So give it a go. It's really, really easy. Didn't take a lot of time. There is time, obviously, between, you know, taking the seeds out, de-seeding, and then letting them ferment, etc., etc. It did take me a few days, okay? Just give it time. It's gonna smell a little bit. That's totally normal. That's the fermenting process. Give them a rinse, throw them on here, let them dry. You're good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I enjoyed making it for you. I'm going to be doing a lot more seed saving. I've got this yellow squash that's like, you know, really, really hard. I'm gonna save the seed out of this for next year. And then same with like my acorn squash, save the seed for that. And of course, the lovely uchiki curry. That's another one I'm gonna save the seeds for. So when you crack into your veg, always keep seeds in mind, especially if it's an heirloom variety, because that could be next year's stock and it's completely free. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so that you can receive videos as soon as they're dropped. Hit the like button, and of course, leave the comments. And I will see you all really, really soon for a brand new episode, most likely on Saturday. So long.